Hello, hello everyone. My name is Andrea Satariano, and I'm thrilled to be here with you this evening to talk to you about preparing to write the personal statement. This is the big essay associated with the Common Application, and a little bit about me, so you know why I'm even here today. My background has been as a director of college counseling at independent schools the last 27 years. Prior to that, I also worked in college admissions. So I come to you this evening with a wealth of information about how students approach writing these essays and really some fantastic tips to help make this process go smoothly for all involved. Okay, I am going to just click ahead here. So let me begin by just talking about the Common App itself. So there's a common terminology for me and for people who work in schools, but perhaps for you, this is sort of a new concept or a big scary concept. The Common Application is basically a generic application format that many colleges use in the country, where students fill out the information once and they can send it to multiple places. So they're not filling out multiple applications. Um, and in the Common Application, it asks the students to write one big significant essay called the personal statement, and the maximum length, 650 words, so about a page. Um, the Common App has always offered a variety of topics, typically 6 or 7, one of which is almost always topic of your choice. But there are some pointed prompts, which I think and find that students actually identify with and make it sometimes easier to tackle this big piece of writing. I will tell you that colleges have zero preference, no preference at all about which prompt you choose. So please don't overthink this. When you're reviewing the options, choose the one that really the student feels the most comfortable with and go with that. There's absolutely no preference for one versus the other. The overarching goal for this essay is for the admission reader or readers to really get a sense of who the student applicant is beyond the paperwork, right? Beyond their transcript, beyond their activities, beyond their teacher recommendations. This is really a piece that the student can make personal and own, which will help them stand out. So the objective, as I alluded to, but here's some key pieces. It should be thesis driven, not activity driven, right? You want to keep asking yourself in thinking about this essay and writing this essay is, what does this say about me, about who I am as a human being, who I am as a lab partner, a roommate, a teammate, whatever that might be. We do not want this to be about a specific thing you did, right? We don't want this to be a litany of resume items. They're going to see that information in other places throughout the application. So this is really the only single opportunity for students to have their own voice show up in a very clear way. So my first piece of advice, and this is really hard for teenagers, but this is to stay true to yourself in the writing. This essay should really be, I hate this term, this is such a popular term, but be authentic, right? College admissions counselors understand that 17-year-olds are writing these essays, right? That you're not supposed to sound like a polished 52-year-old in a Talbot suit, right? This is a teenage piece of writing. And of course, it needs to be well written and grammatically correct, but the voice of it really needs to ring true of that of a teenager. And this is important for the committee to get the opportunity to see this little spark of who you are. So make sure at some point, and we'll talk more about this, that you have someone helping you with the actual editing. Please do not rely on spell check, right? Words can be spelled correctly, but be the wrong use or in the wrong place. So a fresh pair of eyes is always advised. Admissions reps can tell if this is a heavily edited piece by a parent or if AI is used. This is like the brand new right thing of technology. AI is still not quite nuanced enough to capture this kind of writing, particularly sort of humorous or emotional writing. So one of the telltale signs, and I am of this generation, is so parents out there, if you are actually writing your child's essay and you leave 2 spaces after the period, an admission rep is going to see that immediately and know that no teenager wrote that draft. So, I'm all kidding aside, please support your child in this writing, but don't be heavy-handed. They actually do want to hear from the student in the student's voice. Okay, so why start now? It is May 21st. But it's important actually to think about this and start this now. I know it's the end of the year. I know people have final exams and projects due and a whole lot of celebrations happening, but time management is really the key to navigating this piece of the process. I promise if you start now and break this into little chunks, little stepping stones along the way from now to the fall, you will have a much saner and calmer time in your household and in the fall of senior year. So keep these couple things in mind. First, the Common App has already released the prompts for the class of 2026. They're already available. You can literally Google it or go to Common App. They are right there. The Common App itself, however, is not in tune with the class of 2026 quite yet. It's still working on this year's graduating seniors. So the Common App itself is not ready for the rising seniors, but the prompts are available. What happens also on August 1st, when the Common App becomes ready for the class of 2026, that's also when the colleges began populating their separate additional supplemental essays into the Common App section. So what does this mean? This means besides the big 650-word maximum personal statement, individual colleges have the option of asking students to write more essays. Typically, these are shorter. They tend to be 250 to 300 words. Many times they are college specific. For instance, why are you applying to my college? Why are you applying to this major at my college? Some will be off key and funny. Some will be on like current events, but you won't know what those are until after August 1st. So that leaves right now, May, June, and July for you to get yourself reviewing those prompts, picking out 1 or 2 topics, starting to brainstorm and outline 1 or 2 of the drafts, and really working hard through June and July to get that draft in a really close state of readiness. Because once August 1 happens, you will have a flood of activities with the rest of your colleges on your list and their supplemental essays. And if you're applying in the early round, which the majority of high school seniors do, that means anywhere from October 15th to November 1 to November 15. So if you look at that runway, it's not as long as we think it is, given the number of pieces students will be writing. Okay, so again, this is the ideal time to get started with reviewing the prompts, identifying 1 or 2 that work, start brainstorming and outlining those 2 choices. So you can really then spend June and July digging in deeply and writing a really, really wonderful draft. So where do I begin? Okay, if anybody here is an Elsa fan, and let it go. Students tend to get their stomach tied up in knots over getting started with this big essay. I love Stephen King's quote, "The scariest moment is always just before you start." And it's so true in this type of essay writing. Students often struggle under the idea of they have to have this perfect topic, this huge, amazing thing that they've accomplished or overcome. And in reality, it can be a very simple topic as long as it's heartfelt and authentic. Lots and lots of students are afraid. They're afraid to start writing because they're afraid it won't be good enough. And I am here to tell you to just let that go and just get started. Lots of seniors have written drafts that I have reviewed and sent back because they're writing what they think the admissions committee wants to hear. And in reality, they really, really want to know who you are, the student is, beyond their statistics and their resume. Students and parents There's a lot of talk out there about certain topics you should avoid. And I am here to say, in reality, any topic can be a good topic if it's well written. So again, we'll talk more about each one of these pieces as we go along. But the biggest piece of advice is to just get started. So there are a couple quick brainstorming exercises. I'm not going to have you do this now at home, but you can make note of these and maybe do these on your own. Um, Everything I want colleges to know about me. Literally get out a piece of paper and a pen or pencil or a Google Doc and just set a timer for a minute and just start writing down anything you can think of that you want the college to know about you as a human being and a student, right? And as you're doing that, do it once, do it a second time. Common topics or themes will start to emerge, which may help you find yourself pointing in a certain direction. The same is true of number 2, 21 details about me. Again, set the timer, 30 seconds, write your little fingers off, just start writing things down. And then do it again for another 30 seconds. This has been really helpful in getting students just to get the juices flowing, right? Just to get started. And I want to give credit where credit is due. The College Essay Guy offers many free, outstanding resources. Literally Google him and his company, and you'll have a wealth of information at your fingertips. Both of these I have learned from using his resources, but there are many more out there. But these are 2 of my favorites. Now, as you're making these notes and writing up details about yourself and sort of getting things on paper, you really want to step outside your body and look at yourself, right? Look at your life and think about both positive and challenging moments. These can be great starting points for essays. Something that really shaped your character, value, or interest, I have noted here. It doesn't have to be, again, this big, overwhelming item. It could be something much simpler. It could be failing your driver's test for the second time. It could be not getting asked to the prom. I mean, there are, and those might sound trivial, and every high school student experiences these things. But if it's in your voice, it can be done exceptionally well. So please don't shy away from some of these topics that you feel might not be big enough or meaningful enough. Another approach is to identify your passions. Make a list, right, of your hobbies, your collections, the causes you care about, whatever that is. And let's start thinking about your involvement or interest in those things. How has that helped you grow personally? How has it helped you learn about yourself or others? What is it about this cause that draws you in or makes you want to contribute? Again, we're trying to uncover little sparks that we can build upon. I also like to tell high school students to consider the unique or unexpected, right? These can be anything in your life that might stand out that someone wouldn't necessarily know just by looking at your application. Could be an interesting topic to explore if you have, for instance, some unique hobby. So I once had a student who, for random reasons, shared that their greatest accomplishment was learning how to solve the Rubik's Cube underwater. And he practiced in the pool at school. And we turned this into a really humorous and cool essay topic. He literally solving a Rubik's Cube. I mean, yes, it's underwater, so that's impressive, but it really built nicely into a big piece for him. So again, don't shy away from these seemingly smaller items that will really be unique and speak to you. I also like to encourage high school seniors to really talk to others, right? Talk to their teachers, talk to family members, talk to their friends, and get their own anecdotes about what they remember about you. They may share something that you totally forgot about, or some funny instance at camp, where I had a student write about her huge fear of spiders. And so going into the camp showers was this huge overcoming moment for her, which she had totally forgotten about until her mom reminded her. So having these conversations about fun memories, students overlook something that somebody else might be able to refresh your memory and bring back into the picture. Okay, so to actually do the brainstorming, I mean, right, Google seems to rule the world. So create a Google Doc is my recommendation, and copy the 6 or 7 Common App essay prompts right into it. Just copy them right in. Then read through each one. Read them to yourself, read them out loud. Immediately, you will have a sense of a couple that sound potentially fun or nice, or a couple that sound totally terrible. And yes, it will probably be that apparent. Immediate yes, immediate no. But it's okay if you have 3 or 4 that sound good or 2 or 3 that sound terrible. Fine. Make the bad ones red, make the possible ones green. Then let's start under each one of those green ones. Just start putting bullet points, fragments, not paragraphs. Don't put the pressure on yourself to sit down and write a draft. Writing is a process, which, again, lots of our students today, they can sit down and whip out an amazing AP English paper or a US history paper overnight and get an A. This kind of writing is not that kind of writing. Most high schools don't actually teach this kind of self-reflective writing. It's just not part of a normal school experience. So please don't skip ahead and try to sit down and write the first draft right on day one. Make bullet points, make notes under each of those green highlighted essay prompts that you think might work. Let them walk away, let them sit for a while, come back, look at them again, add more, cross something out. Ask your best friend, if you're still in school, your English teacher, your advisor, or maybe a parent, to read through your notes so far. See if you've missed anything. See what they think about what you've written. You have to give yourself some space and time to let these ideas marinate. And I know that sounds silly, but it actually works. So again, don't force yourself to sit down for hours on end and do this. Do some brainstorming, walk away. Go back a day or 2 later, do a little bit more work. Let it sit. Go back again, get somebody to read it with you. Literally break it up into little steps. Don't wait weeks on end in between. We don't have that kind of time, but don't try to do it all in one sitting. So drafting the actual essay, again, as I said, this is a process, especially when it comes to college essays. So it is common for students, again, if you've highlighted green 1 or 2 of those essay topics, you might really not know which one to go with. And you're bullet pointing and drafting some ideas, which may automatically make it easy to pick one, but it may not. So I frequently have students who will make really rough drafts of 2 different prompts. And again, run those by someone that they know and trust, and see if one is resonating with an outsider more than another. There's no right or wrong way to get this first draft done. Again, this is where I say, let it go. Don't worry about what you think it's supposed to be. Don't worry about what you think it's supposed to look like. Just get something on paper. I promise you, if you do these first couple of steps and get some things on paper, the rest of the process is going to unfold ahead of you. So my big recommendation for most teenagers is to make a schedule and stick to it. So use a calendar. If you use your phone app, use a Post-it note, put a calendar on the refrigerator and where everybody can see it and you can be accountable, and circle an end date. So look ahead, to, let's pretend August 1 for the Common App essay. Circle that date. Now we have to work backwards from that date. If you want it to be ready by August 1, what do you have to do in advance of that? So also on your calendar, make sure you're noting family trips this summer, maybe a summer camp, maybe you have certain days of the week you have a job, maybe you have other obligations that you cannot sit down and do this kind of work around. So put those all on the calendar. And again, if you start blocking off, I'm going to do 30 minutes today, I'm going to let that marinate. I'm going to do 30 minutes on Saturday. I'm going to let that marinate. Once you start blocking that off, you'll see the timeline again ahead of you. Start little, start with 20 to 30 minutes at a time. And as you're drafting, don't be afraid to work out of sequence. Again, this is where a lot of kids sort of get locked into, I have to write the opening and the intro, and here's 2 body paragraphs, and here's my closing. I often say, if you have a spark that sounds like this is the powerful ending, write the closing paragraph. If you want to build a middle paragraph on the story of the anecdote, do that. Um, I can't tell you how often students have turned in first drafts to me, and I have circled the closing paragraph, I've drawn a big arrow up to the top and said, this is your opening. Um, you have to be open to that, right? And when you're in the with the blinders on and you're in the midst of writing, sometimes you can't see the whole picture. So, but don't let that stop you. Get it all down, start the draft. And again, there are others who out there who can help you reorganize, give you feedback along the way. But if you make a writing schedule throughout now until right August 1, I promise you'll make progress that you wouldn't if you were left to your own devices. Okay, some tips about the actual essay. I think this makes sense, right? Number one, you want to get their attention. Open with a sentence or an anecdote or a bold statement or a question, something that the reader wants to continue reading, right? Something that makes them want to read more. Again, avoid the resume. I know sometimes well-intentioned parents want to try to squeeze in everything you've accomplished, which is amazing, but this is not the time to do that, nor the place. Um, the readers want to know, again, what makes you tick, what makes you laugh, what scares you, who you are. So please don't restate your activities within this. If it's part of the story, of course, you want to add in the right context, but you don't want the focus to become the activity and not you. You will hear this number 3 over and over again from anyone who works with students and essay writing. Show, don't tell. I know this often isn't sort of easy to understand for high schoolers. So I actually have some examples a little later in this presentation that show you what that means, rather than tell you what that means. But it basically is you set the scene, use emotional language, but don't just give a litany of facts, right? Tell the story that gets the reader to see what you want them to see without just listing like the steps of direction. Okay, my favorite essay tip, maybe my favorite essay tip of all time, is when you're ready, when it's a very healthy, good first draft, you need to read it out loud to yourself. And read it out loud to someone else or have somebody read it out loud to you. You will be amazed at how differently the essay sounds out loud or hearing it when someone else is reading it. Your brain is so tuned into what you've been working on for weeks and weeks and weeks that it can read right over a glaring comment or a word out of place or a tone that you didn't intend. So please, if you do no other tips of mine, do number 4. Do number 4 at some point. Okay, writer's block, feeling stuck, right? Lots of kids have come into my office, plopped down in the chair and been so stressed out because they just can't get something going. So I like to tell that student to start with the question of why. So give me a statement on here. I love basketball. Okay, why do you love basketball? I like to play point guard. I find interesting ways to pass my teammates the ball. Okay, why do you enjoy this? Because I like having to think on the fly and be creative while running the offense. Sorry, not office, offense. So as you can just see from that short little exercise, we went from I like basketball to this really interesting statement about yourself, which you uncovered on your own just by asking yourself why. Keep asking yourself why. Or some essay coaches will say the so what. I love basketball. So what about it? Right? So why or so what? So think of that as if you're really stuck on a particular topic. So my example here, as a kid, I always liked to play basketball. Great, that's lovely. But how about instead, every day after school as a kid, I ran home, laced up my sneakers, shut the basketball in my driveway until the sun went down and I could barely see. It's basically the same sentiment. Which one would you rather read in an essay? Again, don't let this put too much pressure on yourself. You're not supposed to get to part 2 first steps out of the gate. You should be at step 1. But with some effort and working the process, you can get yourself to the second step there easily. So again, just on this section, I have a few closing thoughts, right? The essay is the journey, not the achievement. If you have a topic that you think you're supposed to do and you're really fighting hard, don't force it. That will come across in the writing. It's okay to start over. Trash it, Throw it away, crumple up a real piece of paper and toss it if you have to, but start fresh. Substance and voice in the essay are better than perfection. Yes, again, you need it to be grammatically correct, but a good admission officer reading a file is going to be caught up in the story and not worry nearly as much about the perfection of the structure of the essay itself. And I know it's scary. You may not admit it, but it's super scary to put yourself out there. But if you trust this writing process, I know you can do it. I know you can. I've seen it time and time and time again. Okay. So here's some specific notes now on the Common App prompts themselves, in case this is helpful. And I'll sort of go through this rather quickly. But the very first prompt is the your story prompt. Again, you can see what I have here. If you have some big high level ideas, who am I? Why am I here? What's unique about me? What matters to me? This might be the prompt for you, right? If you've had any sort of significant journey in your life, this is a great opportunity to use this prompt to showcase that. Okay. The obstacles question, number 2. I have failed at something. I faced a setback. Yes, I was disappointed, but how did it affect me? How did I learn from this? How did I grow and change from this experience? Right? It's the blessings of the skinned knee. Everybody falls down. All of us have learned lessons from some mistake we've made at some point along the line. So again, even if you haven't experienced a big failure in your life, which is fine, yay for you, congratulations, that's amazing. But there may be something smaller, right, that you ran for an office and didn't get it, or again, something you lost a friend in a terrible argument over something that looking back now seems silly, but maybe there was a takeaway moment in that that you can build from. So again, think about these setbacks, challenges that you faced, and do you have a story to tell about how you overcame and grew from that moment? The third is sometimes a loftier idea for students, but I have students choose this all the time. A time where you questioned or challenged a belief or idea. What prompted your thinking? What was the outcome? So when I mentioned that there are some topics traditionally recommended to avoid, which I don't necessarily always agree with, if you think of the current climate, right, in terms of politics, global affairs, war, all of these things happening in the world, this might be the topic for you, right? If you're drawn into this, you're reading the newspaper, you're watching the news, you're following closely debates, this might be right the perfect prompt for you to share more about yourself and why you're drawn to this particular cause. Something you've done for someone that has made you happy. We call this the gratitude question. And this is a really lovely topic, but you don't want it to come across as sort of a fluff piece. So I do really, if you're going this route, I want you to really think closely about that something or the someone who did something for you that really ultimately impacted you, changed your life, helped you grow, really, right, did something so unexpected and amazing for you that your life has not been the same since. The key here is not focusing on the something or the someone else, but focusing on yourself. So obviously you need to set the scene, tell the story, but don't lose sight of this topic is really about you. Okay. Number 5, an accomplishment, event, or realization that sparked a period of personal growth or a new understanding of yourself or others. Again, there's some helpful notes here about this could be a religious ritual or societal rite of passage. This could be, again, something that you have experienced in high school. Maybe the Young Democrats Club and the Young Republicans Club had a debate, and you thought you didn't like someone, and now you understand where they're coming from, and now you're friends. There are lots of directions this could go. So just take these notes into consideration. But again, this is a pretty popular essay choice. 6, this is sort of the rabbit hole question, right? What idea do you find so fascinating that you literally go down a rabbit hole? You're watching every TikTok, you're looking up information online, you're reading every book, you're looking up articles by this particular author. What is it that sort of captivates you? One of these examples, which I had a student, this is actually from a student that I worked with. So a student who loved baking, like cooking and baking, but really baking was her passion. And she wrote this beautiful piece about baking cookies with her grandmother. Okay, that's lovely. But what she did was she tied it to her family history. So there was, again, this, like, she spent all this time researching her Italian heritage and looked up all of the where her grandmother came from and these passed down generational recipes. And it really turned into this lovely piece, even though it was about baking cookies with grandma. So again, this can be a small, minor thing that you can really devote a lot of heart and energy to make it a really lovely piece. The final question prompt is, which I don't have here, is basically choose an essay of your choice. And so if you have written something really deep and meaningful and your English teacher really loved it, that maybe you could repurpose it for the Common App, absolutely feel free to go with that choice. But that I would certainly get that English teacher or another person's insight on whether it really reflects you and your values and sort of your voice. But otherwise, you're certainly free to use that. So I know I didn't say this up front. I meant to say, if you would like to put any questions in the chat, I'd be happy to take a look at the chat to see if I've missed anything or if there are any questions that I could be helpful with. Although at the moment, let me just take a quick look here. I'm not seeing the little chat box, or the question box, I'm sorry, the Q&A box. So I apologize about that. Okay, well, I will, if there are questions in there, I will review them. I will find a way to share this information. I believe you'll get a copy of the recording. I hope that I have answered most of your questions about this process. Again, we have this lovely little follow-up poll. If you answer this and put your contact in here, I'd be happy to answer the question. I'm sure I can follow up with you in a timely manner. So, quick follow-up poll here. I want to say again, thank you so much for attending the session this evening. I'm so appreciative to Apple Ruth for letting me come and share this insight with you. I hope it's been helpful. I wish every student and family in the audience tonight the best of luck with this process. Listen, assign yourself a treat when it's all over. Like, find your favorite restaurant, a milkshake, French fry outing, whatever it is, but don't let this process become a tension boiling over point in your household. Make a plan, make a calendar, stick to it, and I promise things can go smoothly if you really try. Okay. Thank you so much for all your attention this evening. And again, I wish you all the best in this process. Good luck and have a lovely summer.